Welcome everybody to this breakout. We were just talking a little bit earlier that, toward the afternoon of the big long day, we start to get folks that they're really waiting for cocktail hour to happen, and it's hard to get them to stop talking in the hallway. But we're really happy that you all had decided to come to our breakout. So we think we've got a great story here to share. This is my co-presenter. Actually, she's the main presenter. She is the story here. Maranda Babb is your HR director. I want to make sure you're VP of HR. Didn't want to undersell you there. VP of HR at People's Electric Co-op in Ada, Oklahoma. That's kind of southeast of Oklahoma City, southeast. And Maranda, to start, why don't you just tell us what is it about People's Electric that makes you guys special, and just what makes you tick?
So we are an electric cooperative in Ada, Oklahoma. We touch 11 counties. We have about 16,000 members and about 21,000 meters, but we are different than most electric co-ops because we not only distribute, we're a distribution cooperative, but we also generate power, and we have transmission lines as well. So we transmit power. So the leaders, even before the leaders that are there now, had innovative mindsets. Our leaders now have innovative mindsets. So we're always looking to do what is best, what is most cost effective. And we don't want to be like everyone else. And that's kind of when you look at cooperatives, people will look at ours and they'll say, you're a cooperative, but you're a lot different. And so we take pride in that because we're not always just going to go with the flow. And so I think that's what makes us unique. We have a unique culture, a great work culture. We care about our employees. It's the number one thing that I hear new hires say. It's hard to get used to how kind everyone is at our cooperative. And we just want to take care of our employees. My belief is that an employee that's taken care of is going to give their very best. And so that's what we try to do at People's Electric. So.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time that we're so blessed to be able to work with benevolent employers, and People's is certainly one of those. You all, it's like you said, number one priority is to take good care of your folks. I found working with co-ops who, a couple of decades now, you all really treat your members or your participants, of your health plan almost like family.
Yeah. We do. I always say families are dysfunctional, so I don't like to say family, but we're a very solid team, and we truly live out our values, and service is one of those, stewardship is one of those, and that's kind of where our health plan comes into play. We, like we talked about earlier, we've been reference-based pricing, maybe not quite since before I was born, but for as long as reference-based pricing has been around. So most people had not heard of reference-based pricing when we were doing it way back when. And so this is the only plan I've ever been on the benefits administrative side of. So it's all I know. It's what I know, and I think it's the way to go. So
yeah, and I'll say that Ada, Oklahoma, has always been they're kind of one of those little regional healthcare hubs. Back a little bit before your time, when I did a lot of business in Ada, Ada was a tough market because they really did kind of have a captive audience, and they had a hospital. They had a very active physicians group, and you kind of got the deal that they were willing to give you. And so the idea of having a reference-based pricing plan, which we did not, at the Kempton Group, we didn't have anything to do with constructing their reference-based pricing plan. When we got the call that they were looking for another third-party administrator, they were already RBP, and RBP was somewhat new to our organization when we got that call, and they had already been doing it for a long time. So we were almost a gift, right? It was on one hand, all we could do was screw it up because you guys had everything was all working very, very well. But there was one fly in the ointment, wasn't there?
Yeah, my TPA.
Well, besides your TPA.
Because then I fired them and got you guys.
Yeah. Well, you did have the local hospital did get acquired.
Yeah, they did by a larger organization. Don't remain nameless, but yes, yeah, they sure did. And
Nameless, and they kind of operate in a merciless kind of way, right?
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so they came in, and I would say that's when we started seeing a lot of problems. And Kempton, we had just gotten them as our TPA. They were on top of everything. My other TPA was dropping the ball on everything, and I think just basically shoveling money out the door. Well, Kempton was there. They were going to make sure that everything was paid how it should have been. And that's kind of when all the problems started. And so our employees were getting balance filled over and over and over. We noticed that it was a consistent problem, and I don't like to just let a problem linger. I'm a get it done kind of gal. So it was like, okay, what can we do? What do we need to do here? Because we don't have a whole lot of options. I mean, we are, a rural community, and this is the hospital that we have. I sit on the foundation board of the hospital that we're talking about, and I'm supposed to advocate for the hospital foundation board. And then my employees are being balance billed kind of like crazy. And so I asked Kelly, she's here, she's my account manager. She's awesome, by the way. I asked her, what can I do? What can we do? And she said, they've never given us a seat at the table. But if you can get their attention, get us a seat at the table, then we will take care of it from there. And so eventually, after 3 long years, Kempton got a seat at the table with the corporate office of this hospital.
Now, it wasn't that easy.
No.
I mean, yeah, because my speech, my keynote tomorrow is going to be about how employers can regain leverage, and you literally kind of wrote the book on that. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you all did to get your TPA a seat at the table on your behalf?
Sure. So I was talking to the leadership team in our community there at the hospital, and they were listening, but they were just listening because I was sitting on the foundation board pretty much. It wasn't until we got a new COO there at the hospital that he's one of those people that cares. I love people that care about the people that they serve and their work. They're passionate about it, and he's just one of those. You guys know what I'm talking about. And so, he listened to me. I had his ear. He was listening to me, and quite frankly, he was embarrassed because, here I am trying to serve this hospital, and all they're doing is.
You literally keep the lights on for them, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it just it didn't really make sense, but. He said, I am going to get with our corporate because, this is just unacceptable. Not only was it, we're a pretty large company within our community. I call us a big little company. We employ about 130 both full-time and part-time employees, and we're kind of a cornerstone, of our city there. And then there's a couple of other employers that were having a lot of issues with this rural hospital as well. One of them being our university, which is not small. And so, it wasn't just our plan that was having problems. It was other large employers in the area. And we were all kind of coming to him, talking to him about it. And so I think that really helped us gain some traction as well. Secondly, probably one of the biggest things that I think that helped us also is their manager of employer relations. Throughout this process of me trying to get them to, work something out with us, I think one of their tactics was, well, let's pull them in closer, let's do for them. And I said, no, not until you do this and you take care of this for us, because that part doesn't matter. My employees are not going to want to sit and hear you talk about heart health whenever they have balance bills that you guys won't resolve. And so, I am pretty stubborn, and so I kind of shut her down. She was a very nice lady, granted, but anyway, I just let her know that that we weren't going to be welcoming them until we got this taken care of. And then we continued, to try to work through things, and then there was a final straw there, and I finally just emailed their leadership team and said, I hate this because I sit on the foundation board, but if we don't get this resolved, I'm going to let my employees know that if they come to your facility, there's a very large chance that they are going to be balance billed, and they're kind of like entering at their own risk. And I think that really worked too. Yeah. And so, I felt like there was several times that I really just had to be assertive and stick to my guns, and but it seemed to work. I was very persistent with that, and we were very persistent in the meantime, before we got a contract established. The COO that I referred to earlier, he and Kelly and I, anytime that I would get a balance bill, it would go straight to him. Kelly would get that email as well. She would be CC'd on it. And we would make sure and just bring attention to it. And he would get it taken care of. So we were taking care of them kind of on a one-by-one basis, which was really cumbersome. And it took a lot of our time. But again, I was not going to give up, because this, what it does is, this is your local rural hospital. It basically makes your employees feel like their plan is of little value, or it discounts your plan. And that wasn't true, because our plan is a great plan. And so I wanted them to understand what they get with our plan. And unfortunately, this rural hospital was making it seem like a discounted plan, and that wasn't true. So
What role, if any, was the fact that you all have other options for for free care, like through the free market solutions that are in other parts of Oklahoma, like Oklahoma City? Do you think that, because you all have obviously have the ability to come to Oklahoma City, come to Tulsa and get free surgeries and imaging? I mean, the fact that, I'm sure that this hospital was aware of that. Do you think that played a role in other words, when you said, I'm going to send this email out, that was not, in some communities that is seen as a veiled threat, that in other words, it's not really a threat, because, well, where are you going to go? Right. But you did have options.
Well, somewhat. Our employees would rather stay in Ada rather than drive an hour and a half to the city. So, we don't have a whole lot of options. But one thing that our rural hospital has been really good at, ever since our new COO got there, is adding additional services, so we don't have to send people out of the community. And that has been something that they've really been working through and made tremendous progress. And so, by me saying it, we're probably going to just have to send them somewhere else. That kind of went against what they were trying to do. So trying to serve our community better, that's what they were trying to do. And so I think that was the bigger push as well, trying to get some progress there. So
awesome. Yeah. So a lot of employers that are faced with what you're faced with, there's a just like you mentioned, the hospital will try to drive a wedge between the employer and their employees. You have substandard healthcare. If you had better insurance, we wouldn't have to have this conversation, et cetera. If you had not pushed back and instead allowed them to get close, this is one of those goofy, planted questions, but what do you think would have happened?
My thought is that there would have never been a resolution. So I don't think that.
I think at the end of the day, they would have come to a deal, but it would be probably really close to the network deal.
And maybe so.
Yeah. Yeah, I would
Which
think so.
I think, I don't know if we should talk about what we settled on with our contract.
No,
or-
yeah,
okay.
it's
So
free game.
Our reference-based pricing is, it started out at 150% of Medicare, and then we looked at, with Kempton, we kind of looked at, well, what fees should we really pay for maybe ER, because we all know that's more expensive. So I think we laid it on maybe 165, 175%, 200. Okay, 200%. I know it was more. But yet still, we made sure, again, because we want to run our plan fairly. So we want to give the ER whatever that value is. What's reasonable, right? But we don't want anything unreasonable. So we tried to make sure that in areas that we did need to increase that, for services that we did. And then so.
Yeah, yeah. Any questions? Because we want this to be collaborative. Is there any questions from anyone in the audience?
And I don't think I finished. We landed on 200 and
225 across the board, I believe.
225 for all services. Yes, yeah, 225% of Medicare across the board for all services. So, and I'm just like waiting for a whole bunch of claims to start coming through and us have no issues.
Yeah, that'll be very nice.
I can't wait to see that. So, and this is very new, just to kind of give you an idea. I mean, maybe January, February is when the contract is officially signed.
Yep.
That's a great question. A whole lot. Yeah. So normally, I think we've seen 400 to 600%. 600%.
I've seen 4 to 8 out of this hospital. Oh yeah, from when they were independent, when the hospital was purchased, did what they accept, did their charges and what they were agreeing to went up.
Yeah, so I was fairly new back whenever that switch took place. And of course we had our old TPA, and they were not doing great. So, yeah, we noticed that we started having more of the issues after that happened.
On the old TPA to us,
Yeah.
I think that the values that your plan was paying as a percentage of Medicare were the same
Yes.
initially.
Yeah.
Yep. And they were accepting over here before they were bought, and then once they were purchased, they stopped accepting. So I think to answer your question, I think
I mean, I would think as far as running our plan, maybe that's what you're asking.
as far as negotiating, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are power in numbers. So at the same time, like I said, our big university and then even a couple of other employers were having issues too. And so I think that really helped us kind of get some momentum. But as far as our plan, I mean, the way we operate our plan, we kind of like it. It works for us. So, I mean, I wouldn't see any change there, but.
As a TPA, I can tell you that we do try to leverage the power, even if clients don't even maybe know each other, we do try to be the common denominator there. And so we've had some breakthroughs with this particular hospital system they have a big rural, market. But we've been able to kind of parlay Miranda's work into another community about the same size. And it was also under the threat of, we're going to have to send an email or we're just going to start navigating all of our elective cases away from you. And so they did agree in this second Oklahoma rural community to the same deal. Interestingly enough, though, they did not agree to the same deal at their mothership, the main hospital location in OKC. And so we had to take that back to them and said, I know, we've got a deal here and we've got a deal here, but your docs, if they need to refer, I can assure you they're referring to the mothership, right? Oh yeah. It's like, okay, well, and then the same patient that has been given the green light by Miranda that they're a contracted facility, now they're going to get stuck with the balance bill again. They're like, oh yeah, we didn't think of that. I'm like, really? But anyway, so we were able to get that agreement extended to the mothership. Now, there's still a lot of, like a good opportunist, there are a lot of other communities around Oklahoma that this hospital system still operates in that we have not been able to get this contract extended to. And it's because they have employers that they're comfortable that will just sit still and put up with it. And that's really kind of the message of this conference, and the monopoly theme is until the buyer puts their foot down at whatever that looks like to a particular buyer, whether it means, navigating patients away, of course, voluntarily, or like Miranda did, I'm going to have to send out this in a relatively small community, an email from a large employer that this is a facility that cannot be trusted with your financial health. That's bold. That's a bold move.
It was professional.
But it's a bold move.
I was the chair of the foundation.
Yeah.
So, it was like, oh, yeah. But you got to do what you got to do, and fair is fair, and right.
Yeah.
Doing what is right is what you got to do.
So I haven't known you for very long, other than just being a customer. Not just being a customer, you know what I mean. I don't. I'm not in the co-op regularly, but I can tell you that I think the message though is that you're not looking to hurt your local hospital. Quite the opposite. You want mutual responsibility, mutual accountability, and mutual respect. Right. And sometimes that's one of the things that employers and I hate to beat on a profession. My daughter is in it, but HR folks, that's weird. What you did is not typical of an HR executive. Right. So kudos to Miranda.
I do think that we're a cornerstone to our community. We serve our community. Obviously, I serve within the hospital. And we're big on we like to treat other people how we would like to be treated. We haven't raised our electric rates for over 30 years. And you see all around that's all you hear about, in the news. And so I think that we're not asking anything of them that we wouldn't do. And it's so in alignment with our values. So we can ask that. And we can feel okay asking that, because we would expect someone to want us to do what is fair and right as well. So I do think maybe it does make a little bit of a difference, but we are important to our community, and as they are as well, so the partnership is very important. And that is something that the COO recognized and made sure to bring to my attention. This partnership is so important, and wants to strengthen it and not hurt it. So
you mean the financial obligation agreement? I don't know that. I think you might be confusing that with EMTALA, where they have to treat you, stabilize, et cetera, with no ability to pay. But at some point, once you're cogent enough to be able to sign something, they're going to be in there with their clipboard and put that in front of you. Yeah, and I personally, I've done that, as has my family, where you just, it's a little contract. And I modify it. I'll mark this out, or I just won't sign it, and I'll hand it back to them and say, unless there's a price tag on this, I'm not agreeing to this. But those are things that 99% of American consumers don't realize that they can or should do. Of course, they darn sure do it at a car dealership, but somehow they just don't feel like they even have standing to do it at a hospital. It needs to become part of the culture, for sure. I can also tell you, though, that there is a price to pay for that socially. I think in my opening remarks last year of the FMMA, I mentioned that, my daughter and I went with my daughter to a neurology consult, and same drill, of course, poor Isabel's ready to, slink off under a desk somewhere, but I did not I told her, don't sign that until you get a price. And it caused a little stink at the front desk. And we were looked at like we were just some sort of social pariah. And most people just wouldn't be willing to withstand that. We did happen to get the console, never got billed. So as opposed to giving us a price ahead of time, they would rather just eat it, apparently. So that's a tactic, I guess.
Try that one.
Yeah, right. Anything else? Anyone else? I think we're actually out of time. We're pretty darn efficient around here. But yes, Miranda, thank you for coming to Oklahoma City to tell your story. It is a great one. I know you might not think it's a big deal, but it is. It really is. It's huge.
Thank you.